So on the last video, I showed you how to make the compost in 2 weeks. Really, a lot of that's just devoid of a lot of usable nutrition. So the thing that I'm doing to enhance that and augment that compost is I'm doing some methods that are used by Koreans in these methods called Korean natural farming. And there's some information you can find on the internet, but I'm going to give you kind of a really quick overview. So there's three different types that I've been experimenting with. One is fermented plant juice. The other is lactic acid bacteria, and then the third is IMO, or stands for indigenous microorganisms. And so the first one that I'll show you basically is what's called LAB, or lactic acid bacteria. This is the bacteria that's found in your muscles after you work out. It makes your muscles really sore. So it's naturally occurring. It's a probiotic. You can drink this stuff afterwards as a probiotic. You can give it to your pets. You can clean with it. It will eat all other bacteria in your sink, and just really useful stuff. But primarily what I'm using it for is the garden, to basically get some beneficial bacteria going in the garden. Alright, so for the first one, which is LAB, or lactic acid bacteria, or lactobacillus as it's called, first thing I'm doing is I'm using some rice wash. So I just took some rice here. You can use any type of rice that you want. Put it in a cup, pour some water in it, stir it around, let it sit for a little bit, and then eventually I went ahead and strained it into this bottle here, and what you'll notice is just some cloudy water. That's all the starches and carbohydrates. This stuff right here is what's going to attract your lactobacillus into the bottle. I covered it with a piece of, like, I don't know, nylon. I don't know, this is stuff that I use for my fish filter. You get at Walmart super cheap for a whole roll. But you can use paper towels or some type of cheesecloth or breathable cloth that you have. Doesn't really matter, or even just like a regular towel is fine too. And just put a rubber band over it. This actually will build up pressure, so you don't want to seal it shut. And also you want to allow the bacteria to get into it, so you don't want to make it airtight. But you also don't want critters going in there. So this is basically the first step. So you get your rice wash water. This attracts the bacteria. You let this sit for about 3 to 5 days, depending on what time of year it is, the climate. Right here in Charlotte in late spring, it's pretty muggy and hot, so I'm going to leave this for 3 days. The way that you know it's done is it will start developing a film along the top, like a skin, like soup skin, and there'll also be like a crusty bottom portion. You don't want either one of the crusts. You just want this liquid that's in the middle. And so again, you just kind of strain, once after about 3 to 5 days, you strain it out into another cup, and you take this middle stuff. That middle stuff, what you do then is you add some type of milk to it. All right, so you can use powdered milk, organic milk. I just use regular whole milk, and put it 10 parts to 1 part. So 10 parts milk, 1 part of this. So maybe if I'm left over with, let's say, this much, I'll fill it to pretty much the top with milk. I'll let that sit for another 10 days. I'm sorry, not 10 days. I'll let it sit for another 3 to 5 days. It'll start, smelling like feet after a bit. It'll smell like, some used sweaty gym socks. So keep it in your garage. Don't really put it inside. This stuff really stinks. And also don't put it in your houseplants, because your houseplants are going to smell like socks for months. But what eventually happens is the milk separates into curds and whey, and the whey basically looks like this here. This is some finished product. This is actually LAB right here. But the curds float to the top. It basically looks like cottage cheese. You just take that off, give it to your animals. You can make cheese out of it, which if you want, I'll explain to you how to do that. It's really super simple. You just kind of heat it up on some low heat, add some flavoring to it if you want. But chickens like it raw. I give it to the birds outside, and I give it to my dog. She loves it, and it's really good probiotics. So it helps with their stomach and things like that. But really what you're looking for is the whey, the stuff that sinks to the bottom. And the whey is basically this here, which is the lactobacillus culture. After you extract the whey, you need to then either refrigerate it, or you need to add some brown sugar, which is what I did here. Equal parts brown sugar by weight. So if you have, a half a pound of whey put a half a pound of brown sugar, and that will keep the bacteria dormant and ready to use at room temperature. Then what you're going to do to actually use this stuff, you take about 1 teaspoon per 5-gallon bucket out there, and you can use it as a foliar spray on your garden, on your plants, like I said, on your sinks, or you can use it to wash things. And you can also use it to put in your compost pile to add some beneficial bacteria. Now, this extra rice here, I'm not going to waste it. We're going to use it in what's called IMO, which basically I'll show you here in a second. All right, so let's talk about IMO now. So IMO, these are indigenous microorganisms. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to capture microorganisms that are indigenous to your area, that have evolved for your area, and are pretty much the strongest ones out there. And so what I do is I take this extra rice here, I boil it with about half the amount of water that you normally want to boil it with. You want to keep the rice a little bit hard. You don't want it to be mushy rice, and the reason is because you want good airflow going through them, but you don't want it completely raw. You want it cooked, just cooked for about, same time with about half the amount of water, so it's a little bit hard and dry. Then, the Koreans, they put them in a cedar box. I don't have a cedar box. This actually worked out really well. I just took a Chinese food tray that I automatically had, poke some holes in the bottom of it because you want the microorganisms coming up from the bottom as well as coming in from the top. You fill it about halfway with the rice, and then you cover it. Again, I use this kind of breathable cloth here, which is still all nasty because I had it out in the woods. But you can see here, let me find you a culture. See that stuff right there? That right there is my indigenous microorganisms that I did not scrape off. This is just kind of some leftover. I had some pinks, some reds, some whites, some greens. You really just don't want black. Black, if you see black, really not a great thing. I took this rice and I put it in some trails behind my house, some swampy areas, some wooded areas by a river. None of them really seemed to do anything. The best one that I had, I actually just put it in my compost pile in my backyard, and that one, and I found some mycorrhizal fungi in my backyard under some leaves and some sticks, and really that's just kind of that spider webby type of fungus, which is really, really beneficial for your garden. I basically put one of these things in there, and one in my compost bin, and within maybe 4 or 5 days, it was just filled with this crap here. So then the second step, once you have trapped and you've captured your microorganisms here, you don't want to let them sit too long. So maybe I would say you harvest it after about 5 days, maybe 7 days tops. You want it to be dry conditions. If it's like been raining for the whole week, maybe take them, put them in a shopping bag, put your compost in the shopping bag, and just put a couple of these in there, and they'll work their way into the rice. But the next step is you take your moldy looking rice and you then mix it with equal parts brown sugar. You mix it around really good, maybe for about 5 minutes till the rice turns into this kind of paste. And what it does is apparently causes something called osmotic pressure, where the rice is, the brown sugar is really dry and it sucks the moisture out of the rice. And those bacteria, those microorganisms feed on that brown sugar and apparently turn into a different type of bacteria. Then what you'll get is, again, you're going to get something that looks like this kind of brown liquid. All of the rice is going to float to the top, and liquid is going to come down to the bottom. That's what they call IMO 2. So IMO 1 is this here, the kind of the fungus that you're seeing on top of there. IMO 2 is after you ferment it into the sugar. You can then take this again. I think use roughly about I think this one's a tablespoon per 5-gallon bucket. And so with depending on how much you use, you do as much as you want. You can basically have just out of this alone, I would assume I have 100 gallons worth of LAB. And I can show you what that looks like here in a second. Let me go grab it. Alright, so this is my IMO 2. It's been fermenting for probably 3 days now. I don't think I have any liquid yet. Basically, this is all the moldy rice with the brown sugar in it. Stinks to high heaven. Smells really, really bad. Like sour milk almost. And with this stuff, you want to keep it in darkness. You don't want to agitate it too much, and you want to leave it for about 2 weeks in a dry and cool place. So I'm not actually putting this stuff. I'm not leaving this in my garage. It's very humid here. I'm putting it in my air conditioner, under my sink in my bathroom, and kind of stinks up a little bit, but the price that you pay for microorganisms. So there's IMO3 and IMO4, which I'm not going to get into because I don't really understand it. It seems like IMO3, they put it in like 500 pounds of wheat, and it gives you it just multiplies within a week. I'm not really going to be doing that. I'm stopping at IMO2. And then again, I'm using a tablespoon per 5-gallon bucket. I'm just going to spray it all over my garden and get some good beneficial microorganisms inside of my soil and my compost so that they can break down the nutrients, and the mycorrhizal fungi will also assist in retaining moisture and bringing those nutrients to the tap roots in the plants. All right, third and final one is FPJ, or fermented plant juice. I don't have any here because I actually just used up the last of it. But for fermented plant juice, this one's the easiest one. You basically take the tips of plants. It could be anything. I used some wild dandelions out here. I've also used some grass clippings, and I used some of this plant out here. So basically in the springtime, what you want to do is you want to harvest the tip of a plant, so just like this tip part here. And you want to get as early in the morning as possible, because at nighttime the plants go through their respiration phase, and they put their growth hormone to the tip of the plant apparently. During photosynthesis, during the daytime, all of those growth hormones go down underground into the roots, so you really won't be helping yourself very much. So ideally, probably the best way to do it is if you mow your lawn early in the morning, you're getting the tips of the grass, and just use some grass clippings. Pretty simple. All that you do is you take those grass clippings, you again fill them equal parts brown sugar with grass clippings. You just mix it around for a good 5 minutes. Put it in a cup, like in a water bottle or something. Again, breathable cloth, because it's going to ferment, it's going to build gases. You don't want that thing to explode. And but you also want to keep kind of the pests out. Give that about a week or so, and you will get a liquid of fermented plant juice, which you then can put, I think it's a 1 to 500 ratio also, so it's about a tablespoon per 5 gallon. I'm sorry, 1 to 1,000 ratio, so tablespoon per 5 gallon, and use it as a foliar spray. Spray your indoor plants. This stuff doesn't really smell. It's not like the IMO, and it's not like the LAB. You spray it all over your garden. And this is a way to basically use that fertilizer from a naturally occurring source indigenous to the particular area, using its growth hormones to benefit your garden or your soil and your plants. And lastly, what I'll say is for the FPJ, you really don't want to overdo it. You don't want to leave it too long. So number one, after about a year, the FPJ is going to turn into kind of a vinegary substance, which is fine. It's going to be a little bit heavier in calciums, but in the earlier stages, it's heavy in nitrogen. So you want to mark your bottle, but you also don't want to overdo it. Don't put a gallon to gallon of water, because you can actually burn your plants with it. So stick to 1 tablespoon per 5 gallon bucket, and you should be good to go. So any questions, let me know, and I will show you the process if you need to, or go a little more into detail about it.